all the way to the grocery store and back in 15 minutes. Nothing like a brisk ride on a fall afternoon to get the blood flowing. Now, I totally understand the benefit of slowing down and smelling the roses, yoga, balance, all of that. But for me, part of the balance involves sometimes going full tilt, really getting the adrenaline going. That's what I love so much about Mexico, is that they sort of seem to have that balance right. I mean, on the one hand, it's hot in Mexico. Things move a little more slowly. People know how to relax, take life as it comes. But then, on the other hand, Mexico is the fiesta capital of the world. Think about those heart-stopping divers in Acapulco who climb up the sheer face of a 10-story cliff, walk right out over the edge and swan dive all the way down into the pounding surf. Or those surreal lucha libre wrestling matches where you can watch the superheroes flying around the ring in capes and masks. Or the unforgettable combination of wind, endorphins, and the sound of your own voice screaming as you fly along a zip line hundreds of feet over a Mexican jungle in one of the most low-tech, high-octane thrill rides in the world. Sure, Mexico can be sleepy and slow, but remember, it's also the land of chilies and mariachis and dancing in the streets. Well, that's the Mexico that we're going to be tapping into today. I've got some friends coming over and, well, nothing fancy. I was just thinking we could have some snacks and some drinks and a few rounds of charades. But I got to work fast because they're actually coming over here in about an hour. But I've got a plan. I was thinking that I could, well, make up some little tacos of spicy tuna escabeche. Roast some peanuts with chipotle. Maybe make a wild mushroom queso fundido. Doctor up some store-bought chips with garlic and black pepper. Maybe make a couple kinds of guacamole. And of course, some very special margaritas. So I've got 1 hour, backpack full of groceries, and it's gonna be really a lot of, okay, one word. Sounds like run, right, fun. I gotta get cooking. We're gonna let people make little soft tacos out of, well, my easy take on a real classic Mexican dish, and that's fish in escabeche. And my ace in the hole here is a can of pickled jalapeños, or as they call them in Spanish, jalapeños en escabeche, in that pickling broth that they call escabeche. And of course, we're going to use that for the final flavoring of our dish, making it really super easy. So the first thing that I've got to do is to get the pickled chilies, the pickled jalapeños, and any vegetables that are in there. So I'm going to take a jalapeno out here. There's some carrots down in there. I can dig those out as well. And I'm going to show you how to clean the pickled chili. Cut the stem end off. And then you'll want to use a spoon to just scrape out the veins and the seeds like that. And then cut those into thin strips. I'm going to do that with most of the chilies in this can and all of the vegetables. Now I've got about 1/4 cup of each one of those elements. I'm going to saute some onion here in a little bit of olive oil. A little bit more than what you would need to just film the bottom of that pan. I'm going to put that over kind of a medium-low heat and slice up a white onion here. Now, onion is a really classic element in all escabeches. Cooked slowly and put in with those beautiful pickling juices, it makes a beautiful combination, adding a little sweet element to it. Now I'm going to adjust my heat to kind of medium-low because I want these to cook sort of slowly until they're brown. And then there's one really fast element that's going to add a very special quality to this fish in escabeche, and that's fresh herbs from the garden. Now, when you're moving quickly or you're trying to put a meal or a party together in a hurry, well, having an herb garden can be a godsend. I mean, fresh herbs add wonderful, immediate, fresh flavor in a flash. Well, you don't really even have to have a big, beautiful herb garden. You could just grow some herbs right on your windowsill. But if you're going to do that, you're going to do it in pots, and I've got a few tips for you. Number one is choose a pot that's big enough for your plants. Let them grow into a bigger size like that. Just fill in with regular old potting soil. Then don't water them too much. Usually once a week, giving them a good drenching will be enough. Once a month, give them a little addition of some organic fertilizer. And make sure to put them in the sunniest place that you have. I thought that tuna dish would be delicious with a little of this flat leaf parsley in it. Maybe a little fresh cilantro. Maybe some of these chives over here. Boy, that'll be delicious. Oh, and do you know this? This is lemon verbena. I've got a drink in mind for later. So I'll cut a little bit of that. And some of these beautiful little nasturtium blossoms for our garnish. I think we'll put those to really good use. And now back to the kitchen. Well, I think I might have been a little overzealous on this amount of herbs, but I'm going to do a rough chop across of our chives, cilantro, and parsley. I think a couple of tablespoons will be fine. Okay, so I'm going to put that into our now nicely browned onions and turn all of that off. In go the pickled carrots and jalapeños. And now some of the juice from that can. We're actually going to need about 1/4 cup. And last but certainly not least in this recipe is tuna. It's a pantry staple for everybody, isn't it? It makes a really good sandwich, but it also makes a really nice taco filling. Now, my suggestion is that when you're buying canned tuna, that you look for the stuff that's dolphin safe for sure, but also look for stuff that's been Marine Stewardship Council certified as sustainably harvested. Now, for this recipe, I choose the tuna that is packed in oil, not the tuna that is packed in water. So I'm going to put it into the dish, oil and all. Just flake it right on in. Okay, I'm going to let this completely cool off, and then I got to kick it into high gear. I got a lot more cooking to do. So what are the two quickest and most beloved party snacks? Nuts and chips. But what can you do to kind of give them that cool factor makeover? Well, the answer is no further than your own oven. Of course, peanuts, they're absolutely delicious by themselves. But if you bake them with a little sweet, spicy chipotle glaze, well, they're wow good. So what I'm gonna do here is to make this little marinade out of canned chipotles. You know, these are so great to have in your cupboard for quick preparations because I can just put a couple of these chipotles into my food processor along with about 2 tablespoons of their canning liquid, the part that's called the adobo. And then I'm going to add to that a couple of tablespoons of ketchup. And then I'm going to cut up a lime here and add a couple of tablespoons of fresh squeezed lime juice. That'll be about 1 lime's worth. Add a nice sprinkling of salt, about 1/2 teaspoon will go in there. And then about 1/4 cup, a couple big spoonfuls of brown sugar. Now I'm going to put the top onto the food processor and run it until we've got a smooth mixture. Now the roasted peanuts. That's what I'm starting with here. I'm going to combine in a large bowl. And then I'm going to scrape our chipotle glaze right in on top. Now stir all of that together. I'm going to turn my oven on to about 350 degrees. And I'm going to spread these onto a sill pad on the baking sheet. You could use a little piece of parchment paper there. That'll help to keep them from sticking to the surface of it. Spread them into a single layer. Put them into the oven for about 30 minutes until they're very aromatic. And you've noticed that that glaze is sort of set on them. Now on the chips. Everybody loves chips. Beautiful. But what do you do to give them a sort of pick-me-up? Here's my idea. I'm going to make a little garlic black pepper oil to drizzle over them. And to do that, I got to start here with 6 cloves of garlic. Crush them and then peel them and press them through a garlic press. I'm going to add to that about a half a teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, about a half a cup of olive oil. I'm going to put that over kind of a medium fire. Now when that garlic begins to brown, it's ready to strain, getting out all of the solids there, because I'm going to use that flavorful oil to brush over chips. Any of this that's left over makes wonderful salad dressing. So with a brush, I'm just going to lightly brush this all over these chips until they're nicely and evenly coated. Now slide them into the oven with those Chipotle roasted peanuts. We've got nuts, we've got chips. Time for a quick dip. Okay, about a half hour till the guests arrive, and the dip that I had in mind was, of course, the perennial party favorite, guacamole. Now, I love that really simple, straight-ahead guacamole, but sometimes I like to kind of play around with it. In our restaurant, we're always creating new kinds of guacamole, so I thought tonight maybe we could make a sweet version with a little mango in it, or maybe we could do a nutty version with some pumpkin seeds. And I thought, hey, life is short. Guacamole is fast. I could really make both of them because I could make them both from the single base. And I'm going to do that by starting out with 6 ripe avocados that I'm going to pull the pits out of and scoop the flesh into a big bowl. And then I'm going to season this avocado with a little bit of fresh squeezed lime juice. It'll take a couple of limes for this. A little bit of chopped fresh cilantro. This is when having some beautiful cilantro in a pot really comes in handy. I'm going to add that to the bowl now, along with a nice sprinkling of salt. And I've got to chop up a red onion to add as well. And then a little jalapeño to add some spice to it. Of course, you can add as much or as little of the spicy elements as you want. I'm going to do it straight Mexican style, using the seeds and all. Right into the bowl that goes, and I'm going to mash everything together. I'm going to reach over and get a little taste of it. Now that's good guacamole. It's going to get even better. I'm going to divide it into 2 here. And for one, I'm going to go for mango. So I'm going to peel this ripe mango and then cut the flesh from that clinging pit, both sides of it, right there. The mango flesh gets chopped into bits. Now I'm gonna stir all of that together. And mango guacamole with red onion is finished. Now for our second guacamole, I'm going to take some toasted pumpkin seeds, toasted and salted pumpkin seeds, and put them into the food processor so I can make a kind of smooth paste out of them, or at least as smooth as the food processor will make it. Ready for guacamole number 2. You won't believe how incredibly delicious this is. One of my favorite guacamoles of all time because it's got that wonderfully toasty, nutty flavor to it, completely different than a classic guacamole. Now, since I'm right down to the wire on time, I'm not even going to bother to cover these. Usually I'd cover them directly on the surface of the guacamole with plastic wrap. And then when it comes time for the party, I'm going to show you a really cool way to keep guacamole cold. Okay, Topolobampo is our fine dining restaurant, and to go with all of our great snacks, I thought we should do the famous Topolo margaritas. It needs to start with fresh squeezed lime juice, so I'm going to squeeze about 3/4 of a cup of lime here. Now that's going to go into a pitcher with 6 tablespoons of sugar, and then I'm going to add a cupful of water. Stir all of that together until the sugar dissolves. And then to that base, we're going to add a cupful of silver tequila. Always look for the stuff that's 100% agave. That's where all the flavor is. And about 1/4 cup of orange liqueur. We use one from Spain. That's what creates the beautiful, rich roundness in this. And I'm going to put this away in the refrigerator, and then when everybody is all in place, I'm going to muddle some of this fabulously aromatic lemon verbena in a cocktail shaker. You know, kind of crush it in there, fill that shaker with ice, then pour in our margarita, shake it, and serve it in salt-crusted glasses. And now the countdown begins. We've got our Wild Mushroom Queso Fundido to put together as our last dish. I'm going to use these dried mushrooms, these dried porcini mushrooms. They have an amazing flavor and super easy to use for queso fundido. So I need about 3/4 ounce or so, about like that. I'm going to put hot tap water over them, weight that with a plate while I shred up this cheese. Got about 8 ounces here, and I'm gonna shred that on a big box grater. And now to the rest of the flavorings for this really delicious dish. I'm going to heat in my little queso fundido pan. This is made out of enameled cast iron. I'll put that over kind of a medium heat and film it with just a little bit of olive oil. And then chop up some onion, some tomatoes, and a little green chili. all of this stuff together, and then it goes into our queso fundido dish. And we're going to stir this around until those onions are completely softened and any of the juice from the tomatoes is evaporated. Soaked mushrooms get drained and then roughly chopped before they go into the sauteed mixture. They're pretty much in small pieces anyway, so it won't take much chopping there. And they go right in with this mixture. Stir all of that around, and then I've got a special treat for this one. A full-flavored Mexican beer. Just a little of that will give a lovely flavor to this queso fundido. And we're going to let that simmer for just a minute until it reduces. And now that grated cheese will go in there to just start melting. Okay, that just gets stirred around till everything just about melts. Let's get this party started. So 1 hour, one backpack of groceries, and one fun little fiesta. I mean, it can be done. You just gotta roll up your sleeves, take a deep breath, and go for it. Where are we now?
Up, press to go one plate at a time.